So I don't know, Candace, if you're seeing what I'm seeing on X, but when I saw the H-1B debate going around, mostly what I saw was racism against Indians specifically. And I'm not saying there isn't a problem with the visa issue in the States in general. Getting top talent here is very difficult. Like I had a very difficult time getting in, and I'm married to an American.
Well, we are back on Piers Morgan Uncensored today. And as you can see, we have Candace Owens and Mikhaila Peterson, or Mikhaila, I don't know how you say it. Mikhaila Peterson. And they are talking about the very, very controversial H-1B debate issue, uproar, that's been going on since around Christmas time. Which was unleashed. Basically, the debate was unleashed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and it's caused a lot of infighting amongst the Maga crowd, or between Maga and other Republicans, and all this. And this is important. You know, a lot of people are saying, like Mikhaila Peterson here, as you'll see later in this clip, she's basically saying, "Oh, you know, us right wingers shouldn't, you know, fellow right wingers, let's not engage in this unbecoming infighting. You know, it empowers the left. Well, first of all, it doesn't empower the left. Secondly, this needs to be hammered out. This is a problem. And to be fair, Trump and Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have always basically defended legal immigration, including programs like the H-1B visa program. But frankly, people, more radical people, if you would call me that, like me, more radical people like me, I think immigration is a much bigger problem than that. You know, the typical Republican or conservative says, "Yeah, I'm against illegal immigration. You know, we need to kick out the illegals." Okay, I agree. We do. That's the first step. But at this point, we need, in my opinion, we just need a complete moratorium on all immigration, and then we need to sort out the problems before we then reinstate certain types of legal immigration. I'm absolutely 100% convinced of that. And I think that's what a lot of MAGA types, or a lot of, certainly the traditional so-called conservatives, are not getting. Yeah, illegal immigration's bad, but it's not just illegal immigration that's the problem. I'm sorry. And yes, Mikhaila Peterson, she touches on an aspect of it. It is racial in a way. Yes, yes, there has been an absolute onslaught of racial attacks or racist attacks against Indians. And she, if anyone, should know about that, because because the Indians, you know, the H-1B visas basically bringing in lots of Indians. 75% of H-1B visas apparently are going to Indians. That's one thing. Now, those are people with skills, not super high skills. They're not super high skilled like people like Mikhaila Peterson are implying. That's completely false. But they do have skills for the most part. Whereas in Canada, where she's from, that country's been overwhelmed by so-called Indian students coming in on student visas and then causing all sorts of mayhem there. It's completely overwhelmed by them. So she should know perfectly well. And the nice people, the you know, Americans have this this preconceived notion that Canadians are so nice and polite. But even the Canadians on Reddit, of all places, the most sickeningly leftist website of all, are actually writing things, you know, actually writing posts like, "Ooh, you know, it's getting a bit too much. All these Indians coming into Canada, eh?" You know, that's obviously not a proper Canadian accent, but you get the idea. Even on Reddit, of all places, Canadians who live in areas just swamped by Indians are, you know, they're talking about it. And not positively. And for Canadians on Reddit, that's like a thundering condemnation of the situation. So yes, there is an ethnic component to it, and I'll talk more about it later. Let's just get into the back to the clip.
What was your big objection to what Mikhaila said?
Well, first and foremost, just to be someone that's so new in this country and then to immediately castigate or to cast aside everybody that's in here and say, well, guess what? You're just a bunch of racists. You don't like brown skin, while at the same time referring to us as woke, was just mind-boggling to me. Just as Dee Bannon said, it means that she hasn't spent the time to understand who and what the American people are, what the MAGA movement is, and why they have concerns about this program. And so to make sure that everybody around the world understands why this is such a big debate, the H-1B visa program is essentially a foreign worker visa that allows employers to hire workers into, quote unquote, specialty programs, essentially for people who have some sort of a specialized knowledge. But to be clear, the program has been around since 1990, so the results aren't up for debate. We were just simply lied to about what we were told it was going to do, which was to source the top 1% of talent globally. Instead, they're using the program to source cashiers, teachers, janitors, PR people. So I'm going to have to believe that the American people are very much capable and willing to fulfill those positions, and that instead this program has been completely abused to get foreign workers here who then have a pathway to citizenship, and it lowers worker wages, and it's harming the American people. So I am not fond of it. And I'll add here that prior to his passing, Lou Dobbs of Fox News looked into the program, and he determined that 7 out of the 10 H-1B positions were being outsourced from Indian corporations to American corporations. So it's not globally looking at the 1%. And 5 of those 7 positions were category 1, which essentially just means that they didn't require any specialized knowledge. These are the janitors, these are the teachers, and they are just taking jobs away from the American people. So I just found her referring to this as an issue with being brown, or Americans having an issue with brown people, to be almost comical, to be honest. And I'd love to hear her further explain that position.
Okay.
Yeah, Candace gave a very good overview. In fact, H-1B visas are not for super high-skilled people at all. There's a separate visa program for that. That's one. So it's and secondly, more importantly, H-1B visas, say a company wants to hire a software developer, a coder of some kind, but they don't want to pay a typical American wage for it. Well, they just claim that they can't find who they need in America, and then they bring someone over on H-1B and pay them half the wage that an American would demand. So they have been absolutely used to undercut American wages. And that's what the big uproar is about. Yes. And then thirdly, I think, personally, although nobody talks about this, I haven't seen anybody else mention it, I think it's simply, it's unnecessary and downright immoral to cream off the best talent from developing countries like India or anywhere else, in the developing world for that matter. Those countries need their best talent, and we do not need them. We have all sorts of talent. And if we absolutely need somebody, well, then we should bring them over from Europe. Okay? They're going to have a much closer, they're going to be a much better cultural fit. Europeans' societies and civilization is much more compatible with American civilization or societies because America was founded by Europeans and was vastly, overwhelmingly European until 1965. So, yeah, just bring over Europeans if you really need somebody. But I think it's downright immoral to steal the best people from developing countries. Those countries need their best people. So let's get back into it.
Okay, well, we're now going to hear it. Mikhaila, over to you.
So I don't know, Candace, if you're seeing what I'm seeing on X, but when I saw the H-1B debate going around, mostly what I saw was racism against Indians specifically. And I'm not saying there isn't a problem with the visa issue in the States in general. Getting top talent here is very difficult. Like, I had a very difficult time getting in, and I'm married to an American. And it was long and annoying, and they don't have a proper way to test people. So there's plenty of flaws to talk about. But I think right before the inauguration, having conservatives argue amongst ourselves about an H-1B visa issue when we have an open border is silly, especially when it does kind of dredge up what I called the woke right on X. And I know you've scoffed at the term the woke right, but it encompasses these people that are focused on anti-Semitism, Jews, and they're pro-America, but their idea of America is this white America, similar to, I guess, what everyone's been arguing about for the last 200 years whenever anybody new comes into the country.
Well, she raises a good point now. This woke right term, I heard it used by Konstantin Kisin of the Trigonometry podcast. I've heard it used a few times by him. And he tried to explain it in one podcast, and he didn't even put it in these terms so much. I can't remember how he put it. I think it's not going to take off. But it's not woke at all. It has nothing to do with wokeness. It does have to do with ethnicity, though. Absolutely. Well, I mean, hold on. I don't know what the woke right means. She says it means this. Fine, whatever. I sort of ignore it. But yes, there is an issue amongst traditionalists, including me, who think that European countries should remain vastly, overwhelmingly European. So, as you know, if you've been listening to this channel, I was born and raised in the United States, but I've lived in Europe, in Belgium, since 1990, so a very long time. Okay, and since that time, European countries like Belgium, like France, like Germany, like the UK, have become less and less European. The native population is, well, they talk about the Great Replacement. I guess it's not being replaced per se. They're not kicking out Europeans and replacing them with third worlders, but they're letting in so many third worlders or people from the developing world that the proportion of native population, of native Europeans, is shrinking. And in some places, shrinking dramatically and quickly and too fast. And bringing in these huge populations of completely incompatible people from completely incompatible cultures, is utterly detrimental to social cohesion and dis-civilizational. It leads to a breakdown in civilization, I think. I mean, it sounds a bit dramatic, but that's where it will go. Social cohesion will lead to all these bad things. And we're already seeing it in parts of Europe and in America. So, yes, there is an element of that. Whether it's anti-Semitic, that's a whole different question. That's no point getting into now. But there is an ethnic component. She's not wrong there. And the thing is, my problem with so-called conservatives is they refuse to talk about this. This is typical conservative behavior. It's all about, everybody's good as long as they like our values. Well, most people have the similar sort of values around the world. They want to be safe, and they want their kids to grow up in a safe, secure society, and they want to, be able to have a home and enough to eat and all these things. It's not really values. It's just different cultures are incompatible. Europeans build European-type cultures or societies. Japanese people build a Japanese-type society. Chinese build a Chinese-type society. Indians build India, etc. And, all you have to do is look at those countries and you see what kind of society and civilization they build. And European civilization, Western civilization, should not be subjected to an onslaught of people from wildly different cultures. Sorry. And that means non-Europeans. It's not being mean. It's not saying, I hate people of different ethnicities or different races. It's nothing like that. It's just that, even Muhammad Ali talked about this. There's a very famous interview you can find of him with, what's his name, Parkinson, on British TV in the 70s. Where he says, bluebirds stay with bluebirds, blackbirds stay with blackbirds, or something like that. And he's right. He's right. Let's get into it.
And I do think it has to do with race, and I think you can see that from comments on Twitter. I mean, Vivek put up a picture. I don't know if you saw it. It wasn't Vivek. It was this horrible woman on Twitter. What's her name? Something Lucas. She's a doctor. She goes, what do you guys think about this? Thoughts? And it's a picture of Vivek and his brown family. And one of the most interacted with comments was subversive brown poop-eating parasites. And that's what flooded my feed. And I think I had some irritation because I'm, aligning with conservatives because the woke left has been a disaster for America and for Canada and for the West for years. And it's just frustrating to see them go at each other over something like an H-1B when there are bigger issues like an open border. And I think people are misunderstanding the H-1B, although it does have its issues as well. There's also the H-2B, which nobody knows about, and that's for people who are paid lower. The average wage for an H-1B visa is $118K.
irrelevant what the average wage paid to an H-1B visa person is. The fact is that wage they're being paid is far less than the wage an American would be paid for that same job. That's why employers are using H-1B visas.
So there was all this talk on Twitter about how these people are underpaid and everything. 118K is pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good salary for a lot of people, but it's far less than what the American would get for that same job.
You know, companies, I don't think most companies, especially tech companies, are hiring H-1Bs to become more successful to make more money.
What? That's exactly what they're doing. Of course they're doing it to make more money. They're saving on their payroll.
You're not making more money by getting H-1B visas in. You're making more money by having a successful company, by hiring top talent. So I don't think we're completely not aligned entirely, because I agree the visa process in America is ridiculous.
If anybody is the woke right, it's people who believe like this, like these conservative types. That's what I would call the woke right. Oh no, everybody, we're all the same. You know, when people come to America, they just become American. When people, you know, when 1 million refugees come into Germany, they just become German, you know, and everything works out. No, it doesn't work out. That to me sounds more like what the woke right should describe.
And it doesn't test people, like I said, properly. But I think it's silly to fracture the Conservative Party by arguing about 85,000 H-1B visas when we have an open border.
There's not 85,000 H-1B visas. That's apparently been completely debunked. There's supposed to be only 85,000 issued every year, but it's been shown that far more, something like 10 times as many, are issued every year. 8 or 10 times, something crazy.
And I don't like the racism.
Okay. Candace, I mean, do you see common ground there in what you just heard from Mikhaila? And what do you also feel about the fact that for Steve Bannon and the diehard Maga group, they look at this as a betrayal when they see Vivek and Elon and now Trump as well, all piling in, enthusiastically supporting this. They say, well, hang on, that's not about making America great again. They're not buying into, we need to get all these brilliant people coming here. They think it's a system that's being abused, and that it goes against the spirit of MAGA. So you're seeing a real interesting debate raging about the heart of what MAGA really means.
I think Steve Bannon fully has his finger on the pulse there, so he's completely right. And just to respond to the point about seeing racist comments on Twitter, I've heard this argument a lot of times from people where they'll suddenly pretend that if you take a position of something and they can find a racist comment beneath it, then you're on the side of the racist.
That's not what I'm doing.
That's just called... I'm just saying that literally since the day that I started my accounts on Instagram, I've been called the N-word from left and the right. It's just welcome to the internet. You know, doesn't mean that these are the positions that are represented. In fact, this conversation that we're having is something that I would almost refer to as MAGA 101. This is like a freshman year class in MAGA college. I've been hearing this debate, have spoken about this debate on stage. I mean, I've spoken at more than 100 universities. And to be frank with you, because I came over from the left, when I first got into this movement, I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, well, I don't understand what the issue is if it's legal migration. But I then listened to people, and I wanted to understand where people were coming from. And I opened my mind to what they were saying and realized that they were very much correct. And I think that's sort of where you get into trouble with the MAGA movement, when you just instantly sweep away and condemn everyone and say, well, some people were saying racist stuff about Indians, and so this entire argument now is based on racism. It simply isn't, you know?
Well, there we go. Yeah, I agree. But I think, to be fair to Mikhaila Peterson, and I have no idea who she is. I know she's the daughter of Jordan Peterson, but so what? You know, I have no idea what she's actually doing. But whatever. She brings up a good point, though. First of all, yeah, infighting in amongst conservatives or traditionalists or MAGA, fine. It does need to be hashed out, and it does. If it's done in public, okay, yeah, it shouldn't be done in public, perhaps, but this is life today in 2025. And second, like the real issues. And she does touch on a real issue. And as I've said earlier, let me know what you think in the comments. You know, I'm probably going to be accused of being racist and all that by some of you. But I've said this in many other videos. You know, European countries should remain overwhelmingly European. And by European countries, I include the Anglosphere, America, Canada, Australia, etc., because they were all founded, those countries were founded and created by Europeans. Yes, even America. So, yeah. But let me know what you think in the comments, especially about this rift in the MAGA movement, so to speak. you know, I think it's better to be having it now. Trump's already been elected. It can't hurt him. It can't hurt his campaign. So we might as well, you know, it does have to be hashed out. And we have to do the same thing in Europe too, believe me. We have the exact same problems. I mean, it's probably even worse in a lot of ways because we don't even have right-wing parties here. You know, well, there's a couple which are supposedly right-wing, but that'll be a topic for other videos. Anyway, let me know what you think. In the meantime, like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.